Nammo good morning. Thank you for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The fifth mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I vow to cultivate good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will ingest only items that preserve peace, well-being, and joy in my body, in my consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family and society. I am determined not to use alcohol or any other items that contain toxins, such as certain TV programs, magazines, books, films, and conversations. I am aware that to damage my body or my consciousness with these poisons is to betray my ancestors, my parents, my society, and future generations. I will work to transform violence, fear, anger, and confusion in myself and in society by practicing a diet for myself and for society. I understand that a proper diet is crucial for self-transformation and the transformation of society. For our Dharma readings, we're continuing to read through Ajahn Thanissaro's book, The Karma of Questions. We're still in his essay on the perennial philosophy. However, even if the fact claim of a perennial philosophy were better based, there would still be reason to question its value claim, that consensus is proof of truth. Even if the great traditions did share a common core of beliefs, that would be no guarantee of their validity. No reputable body of knowledge has ever viewed simple consensus as proof of a proposition's truth. The history of science is littered with truths that were once universally accepted and now no longer are. It's also studded with stories of ideas that were originally rejected because they bucked the consensus, but later were established as true. This shows that consensus is not proof. It's valid only if it follows on proof. And the standards for proof are to be sought in the story of how one truth overthrows another. Invariably, as we read through history, we find that this happens because the new truth is better in one of two ways, either in terms of the method used to arrive at it, or in terms of its uses, the beneficial actions it inspires. Galileo's ideas on matter and acceleration were accepted over Aristotle's because they were based on better experiments. Newton's and not Aristotle's are still used by NASA because they have been found more useful in getting rockets to Mars. The historical facts suggest that truth claims are established not by consensus but by human activity, the actions that lead to the discovery of truths and those that result from their acceptance. And if ever there were an issue that a scientific inquiry into religion should address, this is it. How should the relation between truth and activity best be understood? And how should it be applied to greatest advantage? If this issue is not addressed, how can we know what to do to find truths, or what to do with them once they're found? So far, however, perennial philosophers have had nothing to say on this topic. In fact, they repeatedly state that the question of which methods, or non-methods, the great religious have used to arrive at their consensus is immaterial. All that matters is that they agree. But what if all those methods were questionable? And what if their consensus creates more problems than it solves? As we have already noted, the non-dualistic stance proposed by the perennial philosophers, if carefully questioned, has trouble speaking to the reality of evil or providing an incentive against doing it. Thus they fail both tests for verifying truths. They are non-committal on the issue of what actions are needed to discover spiritual truths, and they propose a truth that unwittingly opens the door to evil actions that would result from accepting their claims. So given the weakness the weaknesses in the fact claims and value claims on which perennial philosophy is based, does that mean that the quest for objective spiritual truths is doomed to failure? Not necessarily. It simply means that the perennial philosophers have been asking the wrong questions and using a faulty methodology to answer them. A more fruitful line of inquiry would be to focus on the spiritual implications of the question raised above. How should the relation between truth and activity best be understood, and how should it be applied to greatest advantage? This question lies at the basis of the scientific method. So any scientific account of religion would have to begin here. This study would start by searching the religious traditions of the world, not for their fact statements, but for their statements on what actions are needed to verify facts. These truth-action claims could then be compared and put to the test. And this is an area where the Pali Canon has a great deal to say. Its descriptions of the Buddha's awakening, focusing on karma, causality, and the Four Noble Truths, directly address the question of how truth and activity are related. The Buddha's realizations concerning karma and causality focus on the way beliefs and actions influence one another. His insights into the Four Noble Truths focus on the way karma and causality can best be put to use to bring an end to suffering. His awakening provided answers to the questions of 1. What action is? 2. What the highest happiness is that action can produce? 3. What beliefs lead to the most skillful actions? And 4. What actions can provide an adequate test for those beliefs? May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for joining me this morning.